Let's begin by talking about the order of operations. So when we're presented with an expression and we're asked to simplify it, what we need to do is keep in mind that operations can be more powerful than other operations. So what does that mean? Well, basically, if you're looking at an expression and you've got parentheses or exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, all of these are operations. Some are more powerful and need to be performed before others. So here's a basic breakdown of the order of operations. The first thing we want to do is simplify what's inside parentheses or really any grouping symbol. So it could be brackets, it could be braces, whatever that grouping symbol is. Now, after you simplified everything that's inside of those parentheses, you want to move to exponents, or the upper right-hand corner, the little number. So for example, if you had like 3 squared, that 2 is an exponent that's telling you to take the base, 3, and multiply it by itself, which would get you 9. So we've got parentheses, then we move on to exponents, and then we're going to move on to multiplication and division. But be careful because it's not multiplication then division, which is often a mistake. It's actually multiplication and division from left to right. So whatever comes first. Perhaps division will come first from left to right, and you'll do that first, or multiplication. So let's do a little example. So if you had like 2 times 3 divided by, 4, you'd have to multiply first and then divide by 4, since it's from left to right. So 6 divided by 4 would get you 1.5. Whereas if we had division first, so let's say it was like 4 divided by 2 times 3. You'd actually have to do division first. So that'd be 2 times 3, which would be 6. If you had done that multiplication first, you would have actually gotten the wrong answer. So just be careful, it's left to right. And you're going to see with addition and subtraction, we have that same issue. You have to do left to right. Because addition and subtraction have the same power because they're opposites of one another. So you're always going to do those from left to right. It's not addition first, then subtraction. It's always whatever comes first from left to right. Okay, let's do some practice to get a little bit more comfortable. So the first one is 7 minus 3 times the quantity for minus 2. Now, the first thing we should do is parentheses. So I like to remember this as PEMDAS. You may have remembered it as, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's how I remembered it back in high school. But we always start with those parentheses. So if we look here, we need to simplify what's inside the parentheses. So this becomes 7 minus 3 times 4 minus 2 is 2. Now, normally when we simplify what's inside those parentheses, we're going to drop the parentheses and we change the operation between those two numbers to multiplication. So the default operation, if we don't see an operation present, is multiplication. It's kind of like an invisible operation. So just keep that in mind. When you have a number next to parentheses, they're actually being multiplied. Now the options we have next are subtraction and multiplication. Now if we look here, multiplication comes before subtraction. So we need to multiply first. So 3 times 2 is going to be 6. And then we'll go ahead and subtract. 7 minus 6 is 1. So 1 is going to be your final answer. Now on the second problem, we have 6 times 5 minus 3 times 4 squared. We're going to go ahead and work with the PEMDAS again, but we're going to ensure that we've got this. So when we look through here, we don't see any parentheses, so we're going to skip that first step. Then we're going to move on to exponents. So I see an exponent here, 4 squared. Now as a little reminder, 4 squared is 4 times itself. Okay, so the base or the big number times itself, which will get us 16. So we have 6 times 5 minus 3 times 16. Now, we've simplified all the exponents, so then we move on to multiplication and division from left to right. Now, there's only multiplication in here, so I'm going to simplify those multiplications. 6 times 5 is 30, and then 3 times 16 is 48. Feel free to use your calculator, totally fine. And then we only have one step left, subtraction. So let's go ahead and subtract these. Now 30 minus 48 is going to be negative 18. You're losing $18 basically. You had 30, you took away, you paid somebody 48, you're down in the hole $18. Okay, let's try one more practice problem. So here we have 8 plus 2 times the quantity 2 plus 5 minus 6 cubed divided by 2 times 10 minus 3. Ooh, there's a lot going on here, but luckily we have our PEMDAS in our back pocket that we can grab. So we always start with those parentheses first. So this is 8 plus 2 times 5 plus 2 is 7. And notice I'm just dropping down the rest. I'm basically ignoring it right now because it does not matter. And then I simplified 10 minus 3. Now again, what's inside those parentheses is simplified. So we can actually drop those parentheses and just leave it as multiplication. Now they didn't hide the multiplication like in the first example, but we know that we could always put that in there if we needed to. So we have PEMDAS. Well, we have parentheses done. Now let's move on to exponents. So we have 6 cubed next. Now 6 cubed tells us that we need to take the base 6 and multiply it by itself 3 times this time. 6 times 6 times 6, which is 216. Be careful, we're not multiplying these two. If I took 6 times 3, I would get 18. 6 times 3 actually means that you're adding 6 together 3 times. So it's a different answer, okay? So don't confuse those two. It's a very common mistake. I just want to make you aware of it. So again, I'm just copying down. That 6 cubed is now 216. And then I have exponents done, so I need to move on to multiplication and division. Again, left to right. So I'm going to start from the left. I see multiplication comes first, so I'm going to simplify that. Now, what comes second between multiplication and division is division. So I need to divide those two next. Okay, I'm going to wait on that multiplication because it's further to the right. So 216 divided by 2 will be 108. And then I'm going to do that multiplication last. Be very careful because if we don't do this in the right order, we won't get the right answer. Okay, now we just have addition and subtraction. We finished that multiplication and division from left to right. And now we need to do addition and subtraction from left. So we're going to do addition first, just because it's further to the left. If that had been subtraction, we would have done that first instead. So 8 plus 14 is 22. 22 minus 756 is negative 734. Okay, so that will be your answer for this simplification. Again, when you're presented with problems, they will say simplify, and it's assumed that you should use the order of operations. Give this a few more practice rounds, and then you will be set to go.